Hello and welcome to this session about chatting about business as part of the Course Options Hub experiences this week. So all about listening to our current students about their experiences, and after this time you'll have an opportunity to ask them questions individually or as a group. The students on this session will be talking about their own experiences and perceptions of their course, but they will not be representing the views of all students or of the courses themselves. And just as a reminder, everyone's experience is completely different. The purpose of this session is to give you further information to help you choose your outsider optional course, which you will have to do this week. And it's really important that you use this time, if you haven't already, to go onto the Course Options Hub, which is this website here. I will put a link to that in the chat afterwards, because this is where you'll be able to find all the information about the hundreds of thousands of options of courses that there are available using PATH, DRPS, and checking how that fits within your timetable using the Course Timetable Browser tool. You should aim to have at least 3 different choices so that when you do speak to your school this week, you have more options in case that they are full or they don't fit within your program. We also have about 80 5-minute videos from lots of different academics from across all subject areas who are introducing you to their course. And this is a really great insight to learn how the course is being taught and also to meet the person who will be teaching you as well and get that real insight. Some academics have also offered to hold virtual Q&A or virtual office hours this week, which is wonderful. It means that you can pop in and actually ask specific questions to the academics, and you can find who's doing this through the events app. If you go into the welcome activities, the course options menu, and you'll be able to see all of the activities that are called Chat to an Academic. So you'll be able to go into lots of different places there. So then the final step you'll need to do is, after you've explored this website and you've looked at all the tools and the videos, and you've listened carefully to all of our student panels this week, you will need to confirm your courses. The deadline to choose your courses is the end of week 2, which is the 2nd of October. But just to say, we cannot give you any further advice on how to confirm your choices, as it is different from every school. And you should be provided the instructions about how to do this before or during this week. And this is why we also recommend that you definitely go to your school induction activities where you can this week to learn more about how the next step will work. So that's probably enough of me speaking. I'd like to hand over to our student panel. Just before I do that, I just want to say that not all of the courses that are under the subject of business are going to be covered. But hopefully our panel today will represent some of the courses that you might be interested in, or maybe you might find out something that you haven't considered yet. If there are other courses you're interested in, there are other student panels throughout the week. There's lots of different subjects, and there's more information on the Course Options Hub. So as I said, after the students have spoken, we will open the chat area for questions. Please don't raise your hand or write in the chat box until our students have spoken. But for now, I'm absolutely delighted to hand over to our students, and over to you, Joy. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you, Leslie. So my name is Joy Mwangi, and I am a second year was studying social policy and economics, and I am from Kenya. So I started my course last year, September, and I was doing social policy and economics. But then in my second year, I decided I'm going to switch courses. So I'm now doing economics with some finance courses. So I'm going to transfer to economics with finance in my third year. So my interests involve traveling. I travel a lot when I'm in Edinburgh over the weekends. I also like volunteering and going out with friends and, occasionally watching series. Yeah. So why I chose Edinburgh? So I can list so many reasons because Edinburgh is such a great city, but my top 3 are, of course, when I was looking through my university options, I came across Edinburgh, and I'm like such a great and beautiful city that I thought I'd like to experience. Also, most of my friends really go to England, so I said I want a new experience. Second of all, the ranking. Who doesn't want a good school when they're applying? So the University of Edinburgh is ranked 20th in the world, and I thought it's a good school, so I might as well apply, and I got in. Thirdly, the diversity. So over 30% of our community is made up of international students, which was great for me because I wanted a place that I'd be able to fit in. So there's so many international student societies, like the African Creative Society, which I'm part of. So like it's just a great place for international students because there's so many like different international students, which is great. So what do I like about Edinburgh? The city. So it's a very student city. There's a lot of things for students to do, from like different cafes, clubs, shopping, just very many activities. And another great thing is that everything is quite central. So for me, I don't have to walk more than 20 minutes to go anywhere. So my accommodation is literally 10 minutes away from school. Princess Street is like 20 minutes. All the supermarkets are nearby, so you literally can walk everywhere, which is a good thing. Of course, there's some accommodations that are a bit farther, but most things are quite central, which is good. Also, there's a lot of things to do in Edinburgh, from climbing Arthur's Seat to like going to the museum, going to the botanical garden, going for events. So, like before Corona, we had very many events you could go to in the daytime, at night. So there's always something happening, which is really good. Like you can't be bored when you're in Edinburgh. Academically, there's a lot of flexibility in your course. So because our course is 4 years for like undergraduate, so in your first 2 years you do have a lot of flexibility. So you're able to take a lot of outside courses apart from like your main course. You can take a lot of outside courses. Also, you're able to switch courses like I did. So the flexibility is a really good thing, especially if you're not sure what you want to do. Like there's room for you to explore and find out like what you like doing. So about my course, so as I mentioned earlier, I did take a joint course, social policy and economics, in my first year. So in my joint course, I was able to do two optional courses outside my main courses. So I look at the economic side. So for economics, I had one compulsory course in first year, which is called Economics 1. In Economics 1, you basically do microeconomics in your first semester and macro in your second semester. So it's a whole full year course. So you'd have lectures 3 times a week, 1 hour lectures, and then 1 hour to 1 2 hour tutorial every week. So tutorials are basically like smaller groups. Um, so what I enjoyed and what were the challenges. So I'll talk about the tutorials now. So I enjoyed the economics tutorials because they were smaller groups. So economics is a very big course. So about I think 400 of us. So the lecture halls are really big. We have so many people, and so it's like if you don't know anything, it's really hard for you to ask the lecturer. So tutorials were great because there were smaller groups of around 15 to 20 students. So if you had any questions, you could ask like the tutor. So it was really good. Like if you needed to ask questions or you didn't understand something that was explained during the lecture, tutorials were good to explain whatever you hadn't understood. My challenge in economics was the multiple choice tests. So unlike other multiple choice tests, I usually have A, B, C, D for your options. In economics, you have 16 options for your multiple choice paper. For every question, you have 16 options. So as you can imagine, this is a big challenge, and you really do have to read and understand because everything can like you can have four right options. Like okay, you can think the four right options. Like it's really confusing. So this is a challenge for me because I really had to read and actually know my things because there's 16 options. It's really like it can be really confusing. So that was a challenge for me. Tips. Make sure you do all your tutorial questions. So every week in Economics 1, you're given a worksheet with about 30 questions. And as much as they're really long, I feel like they're really helpful. And as much as you're not required to do all of them. So what happens is that you're told for you to get a grade for that homework, you need to at least attempt, which is attempting means you do, I think, 2 A4 pages, but that's like only half the tutorial. So many people end up just doing half the tutorial and leaving the other half of the questions, which I don't think is wise because like they will test you on the things that they like, even if you didn't do it. So tutorials, make sure even if they're long, just do all of them. And then when you're reading for your multiple choice quizzes, they usually provide past papers for the past 5 years. Do all of them. I'd like you realize that they repeat questions or give similar ones. So if you've practiced all the like all the past papers, you're at an advantage when you're doing your exam because they really just copy paste questions sometimes. So you find that you know at least like 3 questions from the exam you're doing. So do all the past papers. And lastly, attend all your lectures, even if they're recorded. Okay, now all of them will be live because of online learning. But before, like our lectures, even if we could attend them, so most of all of them are recorded. So, but then some people would never go for their lectures. But it's a bad thing because like you really have to be disciplined for you to watch your lectures after you've missed it. So make sure you attend all your lectures. Go for your live lectures, and if they're pre-recorded, just make sure you go for them because they do ask content that's from the lectures alone, that's not been in the textbook. So make sure you attend all your lectures. So basically, yeah, that's me. Thank you. I would like to hand over to Timothy now.
Thank you. I was just trying to sort out my video, but apparently my laptop will not allow it. So I hope you guys are okay with just my voice for the time being and that one picture. So I'll just touch on a few things. So I'm Timothy. I'm currently a fourth year accounting and finance student from Malawi originally. But I grew up actually quite a lot of my second half of life, like 11 onwards in Harrogate, North Yorkshire. So I consider myself like partially English. Um, I came to study in Edinburgh, obviously 2017, and I was actually split between quite a few choices. So I originally I'd grown up in Harrogate, and I had family in Manchester, and obviously family abroad. So the big decision and split for me was deciding whether I'd want to stay and remain in England and stick to the 3-year course programs, sort of available, and stick to something that I was used to, or go abroad and really change a whole new experience. But eventually, I sort of settled on going to Scotland because I felt there was enough difference to be basically not what I was used to, but like enough uh, being close to home enough to like also like still feel comfortable and sort of take time to adjust to like the new lifestyle, which I thought was overall, at least in my time, being the best decision I've made at least so far. In terms of some unique things about me, so I think the unique thing I always tell a lot of people is I've actually lived in, I think it will be now about 6 countries, 7 if you include England and Scotland as separate, but that's up to debate. Um, I'm a big sports fan, so grew up a Manchester United fan. Obviously, staying near Manchester helped. But I'm also a big fan of basketball, more recently NFL, and I did play and watch rugby occasionally in school, so a big sports fan. Um, like I said, in terms of coming to choose Edinburgh and Scotland in general, was I think it was just coming to experience something new overall. And obviously, as you guys will soon know, Edinburgh is an absolutely beautiful place to be. There's so much to do, as Joy spoke about earlier, so I don't want to rehash too much of that. But I think for me, it was a nice balance between coming from a small town like Harrogate and going to a city, but not being overwhelmed by going to a large city. That'd be a big jump, like going to London, I felt. So like Edinburgh was a nice little cozy balance between the city that you feel that you're enough. There's enough stuff to do, but not being overwhelmed by being so large. Um, and I think I would like to just touch on, obviously, I also prefer the standard 4-year course approach. I think I needed a bit more time to sort of decide what I preferred. I think I needed a bit more time to sort of like enjoy uni life, as well as sort of like set like sort of career path and goals that I want to take forward. Whilst I had some idea, I think it was a bit, I felt 3 years was a bit too short. So like that was also a really big influencing factor of me choosing Edinburgh. So I want to touch on a few some of the few courses that I would like to sort of like basically talk about. And I think the course that I found, at least if you guys are interested in doing business school, was obviously I do accounting and finance, was accounting 1A, and I think that's optional to a lot of people. Accounting, I think, is something that if you've never done it before, is like it feels very alien because of the way the whole thought process sort of comes along. And my best advice is to practice as much as you can. I think if it still is, Frances Helen still teaches that course. Still teaches that course, and she gives lots of practice problems. So, as Joy said, practice as many questions as you can. The tutorials, you'll also get in accounting specifically, you get extra bits of sheets that are sort of like extra work. I recommend practicing them because it can really boost your grade, because once you get into a rhythm, it becomes very methodical. So it gets to the point where at some point you sort of breeze through, and it's quite if you practice and you work hard, it's quite a good course to get a really good grade and good score. And as part of your first term and your first year, it can really give like a nice confidence boost into settling into uni. And it is like a really practical, obviously, career like perspective wise of business. It's really useful on that perspective. Another course I'd like to touch upon is Introduction to Financial Markets. So obviously, finance side, this is the one you take in second term. If any one of you guys are interested. And the good thing, at least I found, at least for me, I was reasonably mathsy. So it didn't feel like too much of a challenge. So for anyone who's taking a more mathsy course, this won't be too much of a challenge. But even for those who aren't, I think if you're taking like linguistics or languages, or anything like that, it still is a worthwhile course because it just basically teaches you all the financial basic principles, and it's focused more on learning how to like prepare for writing and doing a bit of research. So whilst it is in the context of finance, it doesn't feel like overwhelmingly complex. So it means that you can do quite well. I think it would end up being one of my better courses, even overall compared to some of the courses I took during that first year. And then finally, I think to counteract Joy's point on econ, I think econ 101 was I took economic principles. So economic principles is the one that students who don't do economics can potentially do. So I did accounting and finance, so we took economic. So it's basically just like a bit simpler than the economics one. So it means that for, I think the multiple choice wasn't 16, I think it ended up being about 6 for us. So it just meant that you obviously got a big overview of like understanding what economics is, and obviously it combines quite well with finance and accounting because they all sort of like link in together in some way. And it's another course that I say that is just really useful. And I think if there are any like business students who are interested, I think if you can take the global challenges for business course if it's available. It probably is kind of funny in retrospect because I didn't take the course too seriously early on, and this is probably one thing I probably say that if I look back on, I probably would have, not so much for the content but for all the skills that you learn. They really do a lot of effort into developing your critical thinking and writing skills in the context of like real world scenarios. And whilst it is context based of business, they usually touch on loads of different things. I remember we touched on obviously things like AI technology that wasn't directly related to business at the time, and we just focus on like developing your study techniques. So I'd 100% like recommend that because I'm looking back on it now, thinking of writing my dissertation, and I'm looking back on some of the notes that we did from that course, and it's still sort of like paying off. In terms of practical tips and advice for going into the year, I would recommend attend as many help desks and sign up to as many like student support sessions that are available. Obviously, in finance and accounting, you have Accountancy Pals and Biz Pals. If you're taking any of those courses, and it's basically like senior students, usually second, third, or fourth years. helping you out with particular courses, and they'll have notes and advice, and it's just a little extra bit of help. I 100% do recommend doing that, because sometimes you may not be able to get access to your lectures. Whilst they are always fantastic, obviously they are busy people as well. Being able to organize the students just helps you see how they sort of tackled the same issue that you tackled with, that you're grappling with at the moment. They can just give you little tips, and I think being able to get advice from different student peers and stuff like that is really, really useful, and it helps you from feeling overwhelmed. And another point, like just in general, as a general tip for uni advice, I think all of us are probably going to face this challenge as well, is always feel free to reach out to the student support services, reach out to friends, reach out to lecturers on like managing work, or like if you're feeling ill, or like anything like that. That was one thing I sort of like have come to really appreciate about Edinburgh, is the amount of support you get as a student, and that they are really keen to just help you and like ensure your personal success. So if anything, just get to know that you have a safety net out there, and go and reach out as and when you need it. The rest comes down to just practicing, studying, and something. These are all skills that a lot of you guys will have done if you got this far, obviously. So just keep going, and wish you all the best as you guys decide your courses. I'll pass back to you, Leslie, if that's all right.
Thank you so much, Timothy and Joy. That's really great insight and advice, and I hope that's been really helpful for everyone in the session today.